This episode is brought to you by our newest Patreon members, Sinetra Hart and Vair Poynton. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I could not do this without you. I am so grateful to all of you who are making this show a possibility. You rock. You really do.
The Queer Family Podcast. Love is love on the Queer Family Podcast. Love is love on the Queer Family Podcast. Love is love on the Queer Family Podcast. Love is love.
Amanda and Gab. OMG, Amanda and Gab are back from season 5, episode 29 as my guest co-hosts for this episode to help me introduce the interview that is coming up. I am so excited, have been so excited. Hello, Amanda and Gab.
Hello.
Hi. We're so excited to be back with you.
Oh my God. We were just talking about how when we did the interview, it was years ago, but it was in April, which we're doing right now. It's April again, but it was the height of the pandemic. Like we were in it.
We were 1 month into the pandemic when we recorded.
Oh my God, it's been years. So many things have happened. So many things have happened. I know in your lives, so many things have happened because I follow you on the Instagram, so I know things are going on.
I see you. I'm like, look at my biggest fan. He's liking my stuff again.
Listen, can the two of you kind of give an overview of what your episode kind of was about? I mean, obviously it was about queer baby making because that's what this show is about. But can you give like a quick little overview of what your episode was so that we can get to where you are now?
Oh, sure. So in addition to talking about how we were pursuing our baby making at the time, we also talked about what we did with our clinic because we experienced microaggressions. You experienced what we identify as assault.
Yeah, I would just qualify it as a massive systems failure in healthcare, and our motivation to make sure that systems were improved from our own experience to ensure that other people, especially queer folks, trans, non-binary folks, have a better relationship with fertility than the current systems at play.
We ended up working with that clinic to do all their back end, all their client care. We worked with them with HR and media, et cetera, to really make sure that if they're going to put up the inclusion flag, that it's because they're actually practicing inclusive practices.
It's fantastic what you two did. I'm still in awe. I reference your episode all the freaking time because instead of getting, it's so impressive. You're so badass. Like instead of getting mad and like hurt and it's so hard for us, which is what I would probably do. You were like, here, this is what we're going to do for you. We're not going to be hurt from this. We're going to fix this. That takes strong people, first of all, and it just like means you're super smart and you know how to like make entire systems.
Yeah, I'd say we were, and well, you could speak for yourself. I was hurt and I wanted to make a change, but making the change helped with healing a bit. But we also waited until we were ready to receive any response from the feedback we had. So I think our incidents happened and we didn't give our feedback until a year later because we were more stable and ready to give that feedback. So it wasn't immediate.
It had given us the opportunity to do some strategizing and planning as well. Yeah, I think sometimes when you're on the heels of an incident, you're in that active hurt phase and it's not good timing. And so I think this really spoke to the ability to take your time. It's on your terms when you want to do reconciliation work, right? When you've been the one kind of injured in a particular scenario.
It's badass. The definition is badass. That's what that is.
I'll take it.
I like that.
But for folks, because I've had people reach out to me and say, I experienced this. What do you recommend? How do you recommend helping places change? What's your advice for folks who are thinking, I want to help my clinic change for the better?
Can I plug an organization?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. Collaborate Consulting is an organization in the US that works with fertility clinics on gender and sexually diverse inclusion, in addition to many other aspects of inclusion. But they have great resources. They have free seminars. If the fertility clinic was serious about engaging in a consultancy, I'd really recommend them.
Ooh, okay.
But if someone wanted to do something on their own, what would you recommend? Where would you say they should start?
Your game plan, knowing identifying the gaps is really like a first step, and what would remedy those gaps. I think oftentimes people are on the defensive as soon as you're like, I have shit to say, and really laying it out creates an openness, I find, at least with receiving the feedback, and then collaborating and building the system of change. Because I think like without that buy-in on the other side, like you're not going to get very far, right? Humans don't love change. And so you have to really be aware.
Yeah, I think the way we organized our talking points when we went in was we said, here's what happened, like fact, here's what happened. Here's how it impacted us then. Here's how it impacted us long term. Here's how it's for us a queer issue. And then we recommended other people to do the work. We didn't initially recommend ourselves because we weren't sure we wanted to, and we were still patient, so we wanted to entertain that distance. But then I also have had a lot of success. So since then, that clinic has referred me to other clinics in Canada. So I've worked with about 7 or 8 other clinics.
Wow, you got a whole business going.
Yeah, I did. I did. And what I found to make a really big difference in terms of understanding and buy-in was using regional statistics. So as regional as possible, so municipal, or in Canada, provincial or territorial, and nationwide, to say, here are the percentage of people who are self-identifying as a part of this gender and sexually diverse community and their age group. And the other stat I found was that regardless of how someone identifies, the general population in Canada at the time that I did the statistic or the research, 70% of them were choosing where they went for services, who they wanted to work for, and where they bought their things from, based on whether or not that company was proactively and visibly inclusive. So I'm like, not only is there a growing number of people in Canada for us that are identifying as a part of the community, your general population of people are also choosing whether or not they want to work with you based on your inclusive practices. So if you don't do this, you will become irrelevant.
Oh my God,
very
I love
quickly.
you right now. I love that.
And it's unfortunately crassly a business case.
Yeah. Okay, so you did all the change, you did the stuff. Now you have a business because you saw a need and you stepped right in. And now what's going on? What are you up to?
Yeah, so I did the consultancy on the side of my 9 to 5 for a few years, 3 or 4 years, 5 or 6 years, something like that. I worked primarily with fertility clinics. I worked with a fertility pharmaceutical for a while as well. And then I landed I'm an inclusion manager now at an organization, a provincial organization. So I can do it full time now, which is really nice. And I am able to bring in a lot of different aspects of inclusion and intersection into the work.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
And when we spoke, were y'all still pregnant?
No, not yet. That was the big thing when we spoke, is that we hadn't had any
right.
success in pregnancy yet.
Oh my God. So what's happened? What's going on?
Well, the day that the episode aired, we had just done our embryo transfer. So I think we were 3 or 4 days from the embryo transfer that actually worked.
Yeah.
So you're telling me I made a baby. I made a baby. That's what you're telling me?
It's all you.
It's you.
It's all you.
We credit you. It was kind of funny though, because I feel like I feel like we're going to fall into a bit of a cliche realm, but when we spoke to you last, we had been really actively trying through a bunch of different channels for 5 years. And we'd done like the second round of IVF and had been able to have 10 embryos come out of that round, which felt quite successful. But the first 2 didn't take. And it was like a return to that place of despair or hopelessness, where it's just like, man, we're into like year 5 and like,
So
it's a lot. And so Amanda was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm like really done with this. And I feel like I was the one that was like begging and pleading. I'm like, just one more time, just like one more, like we have all these embryos, like let's just, give it a good kick at the can. And so I think kind of begrudgingly, you're like,
yeah. I was crying on the way into the clinic.
she was not having it.
Gab
Oh
was
my
out of
God.
town that day as well. And I was crying on the way into the clinic. I'm like, every part of my body does not want to do this today,
Oh.
but I'm doing it because you went through so much to get those eggs. I'm like, I will give you one more, but I'm like, I can't do this again. And that was the one that worked.
That worked. And it was kind of funny because, I think like having gone through so many like failed attempts, when we had first received confirmation that we had a viable pregnancy,
Mhm.
I don't think either one of us like believed it at all.
Oh, of course
And I
not.
remember I was so dug in and private by that point because I think we'd had so many heartbreaks that I was like, I don't want to tell anyone anything. Like I wanted to wait till literally we were birthing before saying, oh, yes, we were pregnant. Now we have a kid, surprise. And no one would like, like it was COVID. No one saw us. Like we could pull it off, right?
So funny.
So
I was kind of low key same way because I had gone through so much and everybody knew and everybody asked. I was like, I don't want to say anything. I want to talk about it. And I didn't want the attention. I just wanted to be left alone. And my wife, Anne, was like, oh my God, this is amazing when we found out. And I was like, is it though?
I don't think we really started to let our guard down until the 20-week ultrasound. When people were really happy for us, it felt uncomfortable because it didn't match where we were at. So we were very protective of our emotional space until we felt
because it's a trauma.
Yeah.
So any other updates you want to share with us?
Yeah.
Well,
no, you go ahead. I talk a lot.
She does. She give her the mic, ladies and gentlemen. She will run with it. Yeah. So I was actually going to just like put a warning out there for you because Amanda might go into labor immediately.
Oh my God. I know.
So we're pregnant now with our second. And the hilarious part about that is that once our first kid was getting old enough to consider, like, let's maybe think of our second.
Yeah.
We were like, okay, well, given that the first took 5 years, like we should really get on it because anticipating that like we're going to have another 5 years and like getting into kind of the senior realm of our own age group that we're like, okay, like trying to like manage that for ourselves and what we wanted within like our own timelines. And so we went and like started and we like all of our expectations were in the fact that this won't take and we're just going to go through a bunch of embryos. But of course not. This one, like the first transfer worked this time.
Holy shit.
And so we'll have our second in like a matter of weeks or like, maybe today. I don't know.
Today, because I make babies. This is established today.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So they'll be almost like 2 years apart to the day. And
wow. Oh my God. Yeah. Yay. Congratulations. And holy shit, it happened on the first
This one is already talking to me about a third.
Oh my God.
I'm like, listen.
I'm trying to prep her, you know?
We got to take turns if this is going to
Man, we still have embryos. I feel like let's give it a couple kicks at the can, you know?
Yeah.
Which is actually why this episode was so like poignant and personal for us.
Let's talk about that because we spent a lot of time talking about systems and our families have to go through these systems like so much, right? But the two coming in, Carrie and Angie, kind of went rogue. Did away with the system route. They got donated embryos from a Facebook group, from a gay male couple, and ended up getting pregnant. And it's like a real pay it forward, queer, baby making story because these embryos traveled all over. I lost track at one point when I was re-listening. Right? I'm like, wait, who
crossed
has
the
the
border
embryos
a couple
now?
times?
Like, where are these with a clutch of embryos?
Those babies did more traveling than I've done in the last couple of years.
But you, Amanda, you were saying their story kind of hit home a little bit.
Yeah. So we have, how many do we have left? Six left.
Yeah.
And so the question, like, you can't pay for storage for life, right? So we've been thinking about like, what do we want to do with them? And so it was really interesting to hear about the experience of folks who have built their family through embryo donation.
Yeah, I think one thing that really stood out for me and what I love about this episode as well, I love queer community. And I feel like this was true building community, you know, where everybody understands each other's struggles in a way that other people really cannot, and like wants to support others in achieving their family building goals. And like everyone was a contributor in different ways. And I just thought it was such a heartening episode, especially given like the baseline struggle that everybody goes through. So yeah, really beautiful.
I agree wholeheartedly. And that was like my big takeaway too. It's a beautiful story. We don't want to give too much away, but y'all are going to love this episode. And I'm so happy to have had you two back. And I hope to hear from you more, but you're about to be in baby number 2 land. And that's an interesting place. It's an interesting place.
That's right. I'll have a lot of time to sit and listen to podcasts for sure.
That's true. You can send
I'll
me
send you
notes.
voice memos instead of typing things out, though. That'll be easier.
Yeah, send me some voice memos. We'll do updates by Amanda and Gab. It has been a joy talking to you all, and I can't wait to speak to you again. Can't wait to hear about baby. So you have to let me know.
Absolutely.
We have to tell who to roll the tape. I don't know if you know who it is, but those crotchety old ladies.
That's
Helen
right.
and Beulah, would you all like to do?
Sitting over there with the nail flat files, just waiting for their turn.
Can you tell those 2 ladies to please roll this tape? Because we need this interview to get started.
Helen, Beulah, roll the tape.
Queer Family Podcast.
Wait, Helen, before you roll that tape, this is Jamie's daughter, Rose. I have to tell you that you should join my mom's Patreon. My mom's Patreon. My mom works really hard on the show, but even with the sponsors, she really doesn't make enough profit to hire a real assistant or a team. So please go to Patreon. Please go to Patreon. So please go to patreon.com/The Queer Family Podcast and join now. You'll do a good thing and get bonus content. She really loves this stuff.
Love is love is love is love.
Hi, Carrie and Angie.
Hello.
I'm so happy to have you here. Before we get into the whole nitty gritty of it, everybody needs to know who you are. So I'm going to get a little timer, and we're going to do your 30-second elevator pitch of who you are and why you're here talking to the Queer Fam Squad.
The Queer Fam Squad. Okay.
All right. On your mark, get set, go.
Okay. I'm Carrie.
I'm Angie.
And we are parents of an amazing donor-conceived kiddo who we made through embryo donation. We are excited to be here today when we are not chasing after our
2-year-old
and many, many critters.
All of our critters.
All of our critters. Angie trains dogs.
Yep.
I'm a therapist to people and have a fertility coaching business.
Boom. Under 30 seconds. You did it. That was amazing. Even when you got a little nervous when you saw that clock in front of your face.
That clock is not okay.
But
no.
I'll never cut you off. It really doesn't matter.
Especially since all I've been listening to is that you don't cut us off and like all these nice things on the podcast. Here, hang on.
I don't cut you off, but I do put a clock in front of your face just to add some pressure because it makes it fun. Yeah. Okay.
You did great, babe.
You did great. You both did. So let's take it back. You have a child through embryo donation.
Yes.
Amazing. And I can't wait to get into that. Before we do that, we need to take it all the way back. We need to take it back to the beginning of you two and then the beginning of baby talk. Let's go there.
So we coincidentally also met via kind of the Facebook. We had a ton of mutual friends and we'd lived in the same town for like
A long time. Like almost
7 or 8 years. Yeah. And you know how Facebook will like suggest friends? Well, they suggested Carrie and I was like, oh, wow, she's really cute. And so I just started kind of Facebook stalking her like years back.
Well,
And
I was
so-
like, who is liking all my pictures? So I asked a friend.
She asked one of our mutual friends. Yeah.
Yeah. And she was basically like, oh, you know Angie. You should know Angie.
Oh, look
So
at
I played it
that.
cool and was just like, do I know you? Do I actually know you? And she was like, no, but you should. And,
Ooh, there you go, Angie.
Yeah. Yeah.
and so
Slipping in those
cute.
DMs.
we met for tea,
Yeah. We met for tea
3-hour coffee date.
and then that was it.
That was
And
kinda
then-
it.
Yeah.
That was it.
And
So lesbian. Wait, do you identify as lesbians?
Yeah, we do.
Mhm.
She, her, lesbians.
So
Yeah.
lesbian.
We didn't U-Haul it though.
Oh, no, we didn't U-Haul it. Yeah.
Love at first sight. We had
Yeah.
a long coffee / tea date. And then where does baby talk come in?
So we met in the end of
2015.
Yeah, 2015.
Yeah.
And we got married in 2018. And we knew.
Yeah, we knew that we wanted a family.
We knew we wanted kids.
Yeah.
And we were older. So we thought at the time.
How old?
Now we know that's not so true. 30.
30.
30.
Yeah.
35 and 36 or something.
And 36.
Well,
yeah.
So we felt like it was older.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew we didn't want to wait a ton. That was really the conversation we had. We were like, we knew we wanted to try pretty soon after we got married. Because I can remember saying, if I'd met you earlier, if we'd gotten married earlier, it would have been nice. Be careful what you say. It would have been nice to wait a few years before we had a baby. Well, that happened anyway.
Yeah.
Dum, dum, dum.
Yeah. Which worked out. And looking back, I am glad it happened that way.
Yeah.
But
So we started trying via IUI at the end of 2018.
Before we get into those details, what was the conversation around who would carry? Was it an easy decision?
Oh, yeah. She's always had the desire to carry a child. And I feel like it would be a fun science experiment. Like I wasn't.
She's like, oh, I guess I'll do it if I have to.
If I have to.
And I work, I'm a therapist and I work with people. I'm like, I don't know if we want this to be something that you have to do.
And she was just like, I've always wanted to carry a baby. And I'm like, you do it. It's all you. You got
Great
it.
when it works out that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So lovely. So that was easy. And you decided you were going to start with IUI with frozen sperm from a clinic?
Yeah. And we did the whole, I had spreadsheets. Like I was going to
She took it very seriously.
Mastermind exactly what this child looked like and how all of this was going to go.
Yeah.
And
So you went deep into the search for
way
Superman.
deep into the search for,
And we did 7 IUIs total.
Oh, wow.
Which only after hearing a lot from your show and doing a lot of research and listening to a lot of other people.
It's not a lot.
Well, it is a lot,
It is.
actually.
Is it?
Like
I
a
don't know.
lot
I've
of
heard
people.
a lot of the shows. People do
A lot of people stop you after a few and is like, well, if this didn't work now, it's not going to work. We were all out of pocket. We had insurance that would help with the birth. We did not have insurance that would help with the fertility.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for the sperm, did you buy a huge amount?
We bought
Do you
as we
remember how
went.
Oh, you bought as you went.
So we spent all this time
I can't just nod.
picking out the perfect donor. And then, of course, after 3, we ran out of him. Well, and they
Yeah.
also suggested that we switch up.
Donor, because it wasn't
donors.
working. Right.
And so we tried this other guy. And then we switched donor clinics. I think we went through 3 donors.
Wow. So you had to keep going back to the drawing board every time. Ooh,
Yeah.
because you're out of pocket for each one. Each
Yes.
trial, you're like,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
So
Which we felt lucky to be able to do. I mean,
Of
the fact that we
course,
were
yes.
able to scrounge and do that, we felt very fortunate. And
Yeah.
we didn't ever think IVF would ever be. I mean, from the beginning, we did not think IVF was going to be in our.
If that is what we have to do, we're not going to do it.
Yeah,
That
we-
was
it's just too expensive.
Oh,
Is that
we
why?
sat through one pitch and we were like, "There's no way." We consider ourselves okay, but we're not that.
Yeah,
you know,
financially,
we're not that. And then
Yeah.
my mother basically came and said, "I would love to do this for you," which was
amazing.
really, really amazing, really nice. I know she secretly also really wanted a grandchild. And she loves being a grandma. But yes, she was able to offer us one. It was kind of like I can try this, one round.
Yeah.
So this was after the 7th IUI. Mom swoops in like the angel that she is and says,
Yes.
I'm going to help you out. I have enough for one. So here's your
Yeah.
shot. Oh,
Yeah.
God.
And so then we decided, since we were going to do IVF, that we were going to try a reciprocal.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so I went through all the drugs to get the retrieval, and we did everything. And I didn't end up making very much. I think we only got 10 and then only 7.
Yeah. It just kind of
fertilized
dwindles down.
Started
as
at
it-
10, then day 5, it was like 7, then day 3, it was less.
And then by day 5, it was one that was like, this one's not going to do anything. And I think I don't know, it's really interesting. Like the fertility doctors talk about a lot about percentages and what things are going to look like. But when they talk about IVF, they make it sound, at least in our experience, they made it sound like, all right, we're going to go in there, we're going to get a bunch of eggs, we're going to put sperm in them, and you're going to have like this clutch of little eggs that we're going to try IVF with.
Yeah.
And so like when they called us and they're like, you have this one, and it's just like, it's here, but it's not going to make a baby. That was a huge blow because it was like, oh my God, we just went through all this. Right. I don't know. I felt naive. I felt really naive.
I also feel like not enough people stress, or at least we didn't take in that IVF is really 2 processes. It's the retrieval and
the transfer.
The transfer.
Yeah.
And so we didn't even feel like we got to try. And the other big thing emotionally for us is that this was going to be our last try.
Right.
Period. That was going to be it.
That doesn't put any pressure on. You know what I mean?
No.
Like that's
No. And we did that so many times.
Yeah.
Like this was it. And we kept focusing on what, it was going to be okay. And our lives were going to be okay. And we'd have more money and more freedom and more this. And we just kept
rationalizing
why it would be okay.
Yeah.
But it was really that try.
Yeah.
And it was very sad.
IVF fails are so heartbreaking.
Yeah. And I again, we had one that didn't work. I know I listened to stories where people have 3, 4, 5, 6. I can't even imagine. I mean, that one was just devastating.
Yeah.
And clarity bringing. I think I was reluctant up until that point to say just how much I wanted a baby. I think I was nervous about wanting it too much. And when we went through that, I was like, I want this. And that was the first time I also realized that I would do it. I don't know how it's going to happen, but we're going to have a baby in this house. That was when I thought for the first time, like adoption, like I didn't know any way would work.
Because it seems like genetics didn't really matter to either of you really that much, since you were going to do reciprocal. Well, first you started with Carrie, your eggs, and then you switched to Angie's eggs. And
I think I was a little less attached from the beginning. Maybe that's because I had an opportunity to try a lot with mine. I don't remember feeling super attached. Angie,
I was definitely attached
to having your genetics.
Mm-hmm, and I definitely went through a process around, I mean, that's why I was so kind of anal about the donor, like picking the donor, because it felt like that was my contribution.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Same. I totally get it. 100%.
So when we got the opportunity to try reciprocal, I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. This is perfect, because it's, like everybody says, it's the way that, perfect way a lesbian couple can have a baby.
Right.
That's the closest to each of us sharing a part of that baby, right?
Yeah. Well, and when you go through so much, you think, and I feel like I've thought this so many times. I mean, I'm thinking it right now with something, with our process, like, sure, we've gone through all of this so that this can happen. Now it's all going to make sense. Like I was so sure that everything had led up to reciprocal. And I think that's the tricky piece of, and I don't even know 100% if I feel like things happen the way they're supposed to. I'm somewhere in between on that. But I think there's a lot of science that goes into this. And so it's a setup in some ways. It's just sometimes just not going to work. And sometimes it's going to work. And that is just it. That was the big changer for us when the IVF, when that didn't happen. Angie started to look at egg donation. She started to be convinced that my eggs were old and swindled up.
Both
were the problem.
Both of ours were just like, we had
old eggs.
Raisins floating around in there.
So she started to look at
egg donation. But Angie, how did you jump from genetics really matter? Like what was that?
In my experience, as I have gone through this process more and more, I just you just start to see you don't have any control. There's no control over any of this shit at all. And so then it becomes, all right, so what deep down really, really, really honestly matters? And what deep down really, really honestly mattered was that we have a baby together, and we, get to kind of walk through this journey with this other being and get to be a huge part of its life, whether we're genetically or biologically connected, spiritually connected, whatever. And so it's just, yeah, like I feel like the less control I start to realize that I have, the more open I can be to other possibilities. I also, in the very beginning, was really kind of freaked out about having a known donor, especially if I wasn't going to be genetically connected to the baby, because I felt like I was going to be like this third wheel piece, you know? So like I went through this like crazy metamorphosis over this whole process, because then we go from all of this to, all right, let's try an egg donor, to, all right, screw it, let's do embryo adoption, where we know the donor and like,
Wait,
I'm cool with that, you know?
Yeah,
like,
that's beautiful. What you just said, that whole journey, it's fucking beautiful. And I think that folks at home are going to listen, and it's going to help some of them who are going through a tough time getting to the place where they finally have that baby. So thank you for sharing that. But wait a second. We haven't explained about this whole known donor / embryo.
Embryo. Yeah. How we even got to embryo donation.
Right. So now you're going to egg donation, and then what happens?
Well, we just started looking at egg donation.
So we looked at egg donation, and that's really expensive. And, you know, our clinic was really cool because they actually refunded us the transfer part of the IVF.
You never did it.
Because we never did it.
Which we really appreciate. It was helpful.
Yeah.
It would have been great if they were like, we'll give you one more retrieval.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That would have been nice.
Yeah,
But okay. Doesn't work that way.
It was like we were looking at egg donation, and all of a sudden we found this Facebook group, or somewhere we referenced embryo donation, embryo adoption. It seems like they're sort of used interchangeably. It seems like people are wanting to move more towards embryo donation because it changes some of the legality stuff.
Right.
With it, because it's not technically adoption. It's more of a transfer of property.
Yes.
Right.
You can't sell embryos. And so that's another thing. They are free. But basically, I just remember us kind of coming upon this term that I had never heard about.
Yeah.
We had just had this big loss, stumbled into this Facebook group.
Yeah.
And we just kind of were open to this world. And then I think I asked a question or something, and someone sent us to an LGBTQ embryo donation page.
Yeah.
Because that's a thing, because there are some organizations who will not donate to queer folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we never even talked to an organization. I think we checked with our fertility clinic. It was like a 6-month wait list. Yeah. And it was cost a lot. This was where we were kind of like, wait, we can go, because we started to figure out, okay, this is not regulated.
Right.
Facebook groups can do this for free.
They're going to charge us $6,000.
They're going to cost, it's like $9,000.
Yeah. To just talk to them about it.
So we were like, that doesn't make sense. So we basically put up, before we even really knew everything, including how we felt, I feel like we just like put up this profile and just like, let's just see. It was really late at night. We just did this profile. And we talked to a few people that were not what we were looking for.
We did not have the same idea of what we wanted our families to look like.
Not what we were looking for.
What were you looking for?
We didn't know, but we did know what we weren't. We didn't know 100% we were looking for. But you know how you kind of sometimes talk to people and you're like, this is not what I'm looking for. It was like one of those.
Yeah. It was a lot of, in order for this to happen, you know, in order for us to donate our embryos to you, we want to ensure that you will come to
our location once a year.
So all the children can play together, and
like legally, like you would have to sign legal agreements to that. And so we kind of steered clear of that.
Yeah.
And
we didn't want to new family. We just wanted a baby.
Right.
I didn't really know any of it.
I did. I was like, I don't want to deal with other new people.
Yeah, that was how. Yeah, but we also just didn't want to sign anything that we would go anywhere once a year. I'm like, this is our vacation. What are you talking about?
Right.
And then we just had somebody reach out to us. We had basically a gay male couple reach out to us, and they had conceived through surrogacy 3 years prior. They were living in another country. The embryos were still here. And we just kind of started talking, and that felt more in line with what we did want. They were using language that felt good to us. Like, obviously, these would be your children, or this would be your, it felt safer, I think.
They understood the queer piece of it.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
This is our only option to make a family.
Yep. And they were going to make us, and we had to legally sign that we would donate to, if we didn't use all the embryos, we would donate to another queer person or couple.
Pay it
Yeah,
forward. Look
person.
at those
Yeah,
guys
totally.
paying it forward.
Yeah.
they're
And
great.
so, they really are. They're great. And they had a lot of embryos.
Yeah, they had
Those
19.
lucky ducks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Oh
a
my
lot of
God. And they were
embryos.
done. They were finished.
They were done. Yep. They had twins.
They had
and so they sent half of them to Canada and half of them to us.
I just want to say, I have spoken to a lot of like donor conceived people who think there need to be a lot more regulations in donor conception and egg donation and sperm donation. And yes, I understand. Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
But I also, what would you say to somebody who said, you getting these eggs off of Facebook is not ethical?
Yeah. It's a good question. And I'm really glad that I'm not forced to answer that anywhere officially. Because in some ways, I don't know the answer to that. I know that I feel grateful that we found, because it was somebody that used surrogacy to make their embryos, they did have to go through FDA regulations. So we kind of found that loophole in something that wasn't regulated. And there was actually a lot of testing that was done on the embryos. But they definitely didn't test us or know anything about us. And I don't know. I really don't know. I guess I just hope for the integrity of humankind.
Mhm.
I feel like it's so hard because from our standpoint, we just want to grow our family.
Exactly.
And
this was your only way.
Yeah. And it's so hard with regulation because once you get regulating, there's so much room for error and so much room for discrimination.
Right. Yeah. There's the loopholes and the red tape you have to go through. Like, it's microaggression, It's just like,
yes.
A
lot of people people of color can go to these donation sites and actually get people who look like them. And, the big companies,
that they
can't
get at their regular.
Yeah. And obviously that's not our story. We didn't have that story, but it's still like, I don't know.
These regulations can, unfortunately, be inherently biased against marginalized groups, right?
Yes.
And so that's a case for the reason why we do the things we do to make our families. But I also just want to highlight for anybody who's listening who strongly believes in more regulations, and I do. I agree with regulations, but we also have to keep in mind our queer families and what that means for us.
Right.
Are you keeping the donation and the origin story a secret from your child? Is that the plan?
Oh, absolutely not.
No, definitely not. Yeah. Definitely not.
We're already talking to him about it.
Yeah, we ordered books from the UK. The UK has some really great books. We had stuff ordered before he was even born. Always
we're part of the
planned.
DC network. Like, we definitely want him to know.
Yeah. And he has little dibblings, donor siblings. Scattered around, and he has one in our town.
Yeah.
And so there will be contact.
And we keep contact with all the parents. And if the kids want to know one another, then we will absolutely make that happen.
Obviously, to some degree, everyone knows he's donor conceived.
Obviously, because
not everyone knows he's embryo
Yeah.
donation. A lot of people assume he's genetically connected to me. And not everyone knows what embryo donation is. I have really learned that a lot of people don't. So there's a lot of
people are like
educating and
what?
You
do
can do that?
Yeah. and that will be a complex layer to his story, I think, a little bit. And we're very aware of that and want to be very sensitive to that as well.
And you're already having the conversation. And so I just wanted to highlight that because I didn't want that to just slip by and us not say it, because it's really important that we make this distinction. Yeah. Yes, we are making our families in these very non-traditional ways, these out-of-the-box ways. And yes, they can have complications, but we are doing everything we can to mitigate those complications with communication and openness and honesty. Yeah. And I think across the board, give or take maybe one or two families that I've spoken to in the over 200 that I've spoken to, that is the case across the board with our families and how we talk about our families, right? So I just wanted to take a second and put you on a soapbox there just to highlight. We're doing it right. So, okay, but I interrupted your story. We don't even have Jasper yet. Well, what happened?
After everything we went through, it was so surprisingly quick and easy in some ways. It was like legal documents, shipping, there they were. We
Got
had
her
some
little
embryos.
womb, got her little womb all
Yep.
ready and raring to go.
Your
Yep.
womb.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we
Gary's
had one transfer that did not work.
Mm-hmm.
And the second transfer where before we realized what we were doing, we agreed to put 2 in. They were frozen in pairs. I don't know why doctors do that. If any doctors are listening, stop freezing embryos in pairs.
I think they do that because the other one gives one of them a better chance at survival, but it also gives them both a chance at survival. So.
I know. I suppose so. Either way, large chance of twins there. We put 2 in. 1 took. That became our amazing child.
Wow. Amazing. So the embryo donation was the key, the missing piece.
And Jasper was the first of the rest
of the donated
kiddos that were born. So after that, there was another set of twins born, and then
last year,
and then another
born. Little one was just born recently.
So 6 kids total.
Mm-hmm. And we actually donated 2. So we were not going to have
is part 2.
Angie
and Carrie part 2.
We were not going to have another child. We just considered it such a miracle to get 1. We just never thought it was going to be in the cards to have 2. And we did not expect to be handed a bunch of embryos.
Right.
But
we got 6 embryos total?
We got 10 embryos total.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah. So we had 7 left over. 7 left. Jasper was made.
And we had a couple come to us through a friend of a friend and just wanted to hear about the process because they, just like us, had never heard of it.
Uh-huh.
They had gone through
the ringer.
Several years of infertility and fertility struggles. We basically hung up that phone call. Angie and I were on the same page with that. We just had the same thought. We were like, should we give them some? We should give them some. Like they're gay, they're queer, they identify, they're in our
contract.
Yep, they're the contract. We should give them some. We have 7.
Yeah.
And so we did. We gave them 4.
The second we did that,
we even talked about it, we couldn't give them all away. Like I was very aware, like I can't give them all away. I can't do it. And so we kept 3. And that was the beginning of us realizing that we did want another child.
Wow.
We tried with those 3.
Okay.
That did not work.
Damn.
That was our first pregnancy loss. Out of all the other tries we had, we had tries that didn't work, but we had our first pregnancy loss. That sucked.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that sucked. It sucked, and I can't believe it was our first one.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Yeah.
I mean, our first positive pregnancy test was Jasper, so that's cool. And then we thought we were out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
We were like, this is it.
Right.
And we didn't want to keep going. We don't want to keep going past Jasper's clutch.
We call it a clutch of embryos.
Oh, the clutch of I like that.
Yeah.
A clutch of embryos. That's the name of your episode.
Yes.
That's it.
We wanted him to be genetically connected to.
Yeah.
That was a part of why we
Mm-hmm.
wanted to have a second child, is because
definitely not the only reason. I don't think that would be great.
definitely not the only reason. But it's like, that'd be cool for him to have a full sibling
with a very unique
share
conception story.
Yeah.
That would be nice. Then I had a conversation with the paternal donor who basically said, yes, that couple is having babies. So we didn't know.
So the ones who had the paternal donor has the twins that are
and then and then the rest of the embryos that were in Canada.
So we got 10 and they got 9.
Yeah. Right. And so
we basically learned that they were pregnant.
Oh, and that they have probably extras.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, we didn't know. There was no talk about extras. We didn't know. We just introduced ourselves. Hello. Talked about a Zoom call. Had a Zoom call. Met because they wanted to see our child, talk to us about the process, just all of that. And basically through that, I can't remember how it came up. We all of a sudden, it was just kind of like we said, basically realized when they had extras, or we said, if you have any extra, we'll take them. Yeah, something like that. It was something organic that happened like that. And they basically said they did and reached out to us and said that they would want that. Yeah. As soon as they got their bearings, right? They hadn't had their babies yet.
Right.
And then we just kind of stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, okay, well,
kind of waiting.
Turned it over like we do so many times, right?
Right.
Turned it over.
No control. Out of control.
No control.
No control.
Right. Okay.
And then
on her birthday, they reached out to us.
They said,
we're ready.
Which we did not think would happen so soon.
Yeah.
Wow. And so
here we are.
And
they gave you
4
embryos.
Yeah.
Holy shit. And now you are
Now we're trying.
Now we're trying.
Yep.
How exciting.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so exciting. I really hope I'm sending you all the baby dust.
Yes, thank you.
All
Thank
the
you.
baby dust. It's going to work out.
Thank
You got
you.
4 tries.
I know for me, I've always felt really, it's felt really important for me to be excited and know what I want, but also be okay with however it happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a part of who we are, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
I think that's a great lesson. And you've said it multiple times in this episode is if you can let go of some of the control you're feeling about how you want it to go, you have to let control because the truth is, the bottom line is, we don't have control.
Zero.
We don't have control of this.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Just
Well,
hope
and I
and-
think sometimes we can't see what amazing things are going to come from it either. Like that's another thing. I mean, we've thought about that a lot if we had gotten pregnant that first time. I mean, we were so new in our marriage and we were such a different place by the time we had our child. So I don't wish pain on anyone. And there can be some gifts in the waiting and even the loss and all of that.
Yeah.
There it is.
And I just have to shout out to you, Jamie, because I've listened to your podcast. I've started from the very beginning. And I will tell you
since I told
that,
her to.
Yes. And thank you. I would like to send a thank you to Carrie. A personal thank you to Carrie.
Thank you.
Worldwide, international thank you for inviting me to listen to Jamie's podcast. But your podcast is the first place that I have found where I can hear people talking about the struggles that I have gone through, just, talking about the need for genetic connection and all of those things that kind of the non-carrying parent goes through. I searched high and low. I looked for books. I looked for it's just nothing out there.
It's these queer-centric struggles that we face that deserved being highlighted. So deserve to be.
And that's why I started Embodied Pride too, which is my coaching business, because it's all for LGBTQ folks too who are on a family growing plan.
Talk about it. I want to hear about it.
So I'm a therapist. I'm a trauma and somatic therapist for 13 plus years, which basically means I specialize in how trauma and grief and big emotional experiences manifest in the body. Mm-hmm. And so through my own process, through working with people, through my practice on a fertility journey, seeing friends, all of that, I just realized, it was like a calling that we do not have enough support for LGBTQ folks in this planet at all. And especially when they're growing their families. And so I started Embodied Pride, and it specializes in emotional wellness, I would say, the emotional side of really helping all the stuff we're talking about, the twists and turns. And I actually just launched a free mini course for LGBTQ folks who are wanting to kind of step off that emotional roller coaster, remove emotional blocks. Ooh. That is available on my website.
Tell people where they can find you.
embodiedpride.com. And my Instagram is at embodied-pride.
And also, I have to bring it back to one thing we were talking about before we started recording. Angie, you were talking about, because you're in the process right now, you're going to these fertility clinics for the embryo donation, and you were talking about these forms. And this is the reason why these stories need to exist. And this is the reason why businesses like yours, Carrie, need to be out there, because there needs to be a huge systemic change in the way this fertility process is done. Angie, what's going on with those forms?
It's so across the board. So the past couple times that we've gone in, there's forms that both she and I have to sign. And for Carrie's line, it says female parent or patient, and then has the line for her. And sometimes mine, it says male patient, and I just very aggressively scribble it out and put female. And you had
to cross father off of the birth certificate.
Yeah, we did too.
Any fertility journey is hard, no matter what orientation you are on. But the queer fertility journey is just from the start, it is kind of in this pocket of just, it's going to be hard. Maybe not for everyone. I hear these stories about people, good for them.
Yeah.
But for most of us, there are twists and turns, and it is just a
Well, twists and
ride.
turns, but you're also like working in a system that wasn't designed for you, but
super
it's
hetero.
it's the only system
Hetero
that you can
cis
use
system.
well, not the only system to use, but it's one of the main systems you can use
Yeah.
to make your family. And
Yeah.
it's just, it's like,
Well, it's either you use the system or you go rogue, and then
Right.
you're opening yourself up to all other kinds of complications.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
And no
people
matter what,
do.
at some point you're
They
getting
do.
into the system. At some point you're going to have to enter the system.
the legal system.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
So-
you have to adopt your child. I mean, we both adopted
Carrie had
ours.
to adopt
Yeah.
our baby,
Yeah.
even though she carried him.
Yep.
And the
Yeah.
judge actually said, "I'm so sorry that you're having to go through this."
Yeah.
And it being the
Good
time
judge.
that we live in.
That's
Such a
nice.
good judge,
You-
right?
Yeah, like you carried this baby for 9 months. I can't believe that you're actually having, because in our state, I actually had more legal rights to our baby because there's the whole step parent adoption law.
Right.
And there's nothing, she's considered a surrogate.
Right. And there's
Because-
yes.
And there's no law
laws
for that.
for
Yeah.
parentage of surrogate. Things
Yeah.
need to be fucking changed.
It's
like,
really,
come
really,
I
yeah.
know.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then now in the news recently, so many non-bio moms are losing custody. There's been 2 stories around the country of these non-bio moms that have lost custody because they didn't do the second parent adoption.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't even.
Yeah.
Can't
It's
even
so
wrap my
important.
brain
If I
around that.
cannot emphasize enough, do the legal stuff.
Yeah.
Do it.
Get
Yeah.
it done.
And
Yeah.
again, I just have to say, right? We had the resources to do that.
Yes.
That was
Right.
not cheap.
Yeah.
That was not. So that's another
absolutely.
thing.
Yeah.
It's a lot. There's a lot that needs to be done. And so, you telling your story is a big part of hopefully the future change that we will start to see and that we have seen. Change has come. It's just tiny steps, it feels like. I just want to thank you both for sharing this beautiful story, and I'm so happy for you. And all of us listening and all of us in this room, my dog included, are sending all the baby dust in the world. And I
Thank
do
you,
the hand
Jamie.
gesture just for that.
Receiving.
That's right. Receiving.
The Queer Family Podcast.
Well, folks, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. I know I did. What a good story. But the conversation is not over, folks. Be sure you're following the show on all the socials. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at the Queer Family Podcast. You're going to get photos of all the guests there, some videos, and just, all around fun from yours truly. Who doesn't want that? Don't miss out. You don't want FOMO. Nobody wants FOMO. And don't forget to join me on Patreon to help me create this super important queer content. You're going to head to patreon.com/the Queer Family Podcast to sign up and get that bonus content. And one more thing, if you love this show and want to represent your love for us and our beautiful families, you need to head to our shop and get some Queer Family Podcast merchandise. We've got so many designs, and you can put these designs on any product in the store. We've got t-shirts, mugs, hoodies, notebooks, face masks, laptop cases. You're just going to go to tpublic.com and search for the Queer Family Podcast. Or you can find the shop on our website at thequeerfamilypodcast.com. There's so many ways. All right, folks, that's it for this week. Tune back in next week for another episode all about family, but with gay.